Thank you for the reminder, Bill.
I think you should start all over again.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Woodstock Inlet Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. The meeting is for January 6th, 2025. And we'll start with a roll call,
Time 7:10.
time 7:10.
Marla Butts.
Mark Parker.
Stuart Peasley.
And Bill Rowinski. And we have no alternates to appoint, so we'll move on to action on minutes of previous meeting, the regular meeting of December 2nd, 2024.
I move to accept the minutes from December 2nd, 24 with one correction on page 2, item 6B. I add the letter R for the word Archer. So it should read, it says Dan Malo noted that Archer sent a revised site plan, and it should read Dan Malo noted that Archer sent a revised site plan.
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley to accept the minutes from the December 2nd, 2024 meeting with one correction under number 6, letter B, letter I under B. Dan Malo noted that Archer should be R should be added to ACHER to be Archer. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The vote's unanimous. We have no nays and no abstentions. Moving on to the next item is special meeting of December 12th to 2024 of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency.
I found no errors, Marla Butts speaking.
Stuart Peasley. I did not find any errors.
On number 8, administrative business, letter A, and letter I under that. Planner Delia Fay. Marla Butts will take notes from the conservation and submit, or should be conversation.
Oh, you're right.
And
Hey, read what you want to say.
that's
Okay.
the only correction that I found in there.
That's a good one. Good find. That's all I didn't see anything.
I move to accept the minutes of special meeting December 12th with one modification under item 8AI to change the word conservation to conversation.
I'll second. Stuart Peasley.
Motion's been made by Marla Butts, second by Stuart Peasley to accept the minutes of the special meeting of Monday, December 12th, 2024. Excuse me, with one correction, and that is under administrative business number 8A, under A, and change the word conservation to conversation. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. Do we have any citizens who would like to offer some comments? This would typically be a time to comment on things that are not on the agenda. We intended to be brief in a time span. Is there anyone who would like to offer a comment at this point? Okay, we're not hearing any citizen comments, so we'll move on to pending applications. Application 09-24-38, 0 Route 198, Bryan Sweet driveway access to land for horseback riding.
Okay, we've got the applicant and Daniel Blanchette of J&D Civil Engineers with us. We had received an extension granted by Mr. Sweet that is valid through February 5th, 2025. And we've had some subsequent documentation from an email from Daniel in our attachment section, which I'll call up on the screen. And some correspondence submitted to us, DOT letter regarding the driveway. But Daniel, I've got your most recent email up on the screen there from earlier last month. We spoke about millings and it not being millings. If you'd like to take over.
All right, great. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
All right, great. Good evening, everyone. For the record, I am Daniel Blanchette. I'm a licensed civil engineer and surveyor. I work with J&D Site Designs out of Thompson. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Bryan Sweet, who's seeking your approval to construct a driveway. A little bit of history about this property. It was created by a subdivision in 1990. It's an interior lot, and the only way to access the main portion of the site is about a 500-foot strip that's between 30 and 50 feet wide. Now, the strip comes in from the road and makes a sharp turn to the left. Now, right at that sharp turn, there is a pocket of wetlands on one side. And so the design that we have submitted involves about 270 square feet of wetland disturbance. Thank you. Could we zoom into the wetland area, please? Yeah, right at the sharp corner. Perfect. All right. So now what we're proposing is a little bit unusual. Typically, you would expect to see some sort of pipe or culvert to convey surface water under the driveway. In this situation, we've decided to avoid the culvert for a couple reasons. First of all, is just the space. There's not that much space there. If you look at it, there's very little space between the property line and the wetlands. It's about 25 or 30 feet. The other main reason is the drainage area. If we look at the drainage area that's going to come across this, it's about an acre in size, a little bit less. And so that we don't feel the potential for runoff is very minimal. We don't really feel a pipe is necessary, both due to, again, the small amount of runoff and trying to minimize impacts to the wetlands. And now what we're proposing, because there's very little surface runoff, we're proposing to construct the driveway at that location on a bed of tailings. If you're not familiar, tailings are round stones, roughly fist size, 2 to 6 inches, that are left over from gravel mining. When they excavate gravel, they screen it, they take out the good sand, they have little rocks left over. And those rocks are great because they have a lot of void spaces. When you put them down, there's a lot of empty space in between them to convey water moving through the ground. And so we feel it's most appropriate at that location to construct under the travel surface a 12-inch bed of tailings. Again, because there's very little surface runoff, and that should be able to handle any groundwater runoff. If we could just pan north a little bit, please. And then again, here's kind of the parking area. At this time, the client really just wants to use this property for recreation, primarily horseback riding. Eventually, he may want to construct a single family home. That would be well into the future. And so we were also concerned about runoff coming off of this gravel parking area. And so we've designed a small strip between the parking area and the wetlands that should reduce, yes, thank you, that should reduce the velocity of any runoff and prevent any erosion into the wetlands. I think the driveway is designed really for the final solution, the final use of the site. So when my client wants to build a single family house, there should not be any driveway upgrades required. Here's my plan. We're also proposing to install silt fence right at the downhill slope of any erosion. And on steep slopes, we would install a temporary erosion control blanket as turf is being established. Again, in my opinion, this design will work well for the long term, and it should involve the least possible wetlands disturbance compared to a culvert. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Daniel, this is Bill Verwinski. Have you done any turning calculations or simulations of the parking area since you've changed it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're confident that this will be able to fit the trailers that the client wants.
Okay. And are you also planning to stay with the crown design there where you're putting the tailings?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
I have a question, Stuart Peasley here. I'm not sure I'm really oriented with it with regard to the aerial photographs. Can we get located how this relates to an aerial photograph? So it's a wood lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a
It's
driveway.
it's an existing wood lot.
I believe it's an approved building lot as part of a subdivision. I mean, it's wooded, it's in a natural state. I would not describe it as a wood lot. It's part of an approved subdivision.
Then, so where do the horses go?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Sweet, who I believe is here.
Yes, they if you had it back on the other map there, the horses are going to go up through the stone wall area. Yeah, that entryway there, they're going to be up to the left hand side through there. If you follow up, yeah, that driveway entrance be up in that area, kind of where the cursor is now.
So you've got to do quite a bit of cutting,
Yes, correct.
so clear cutting, right?
Yep.
So how will that impact what is going on with the driveway?
With the driveway. It's going to be up beyond that, the wetlands, the buffer zone there, the delineated line there.
But there will be drainage.
I didn't have an answer for that. I thought that anything that was going to be up above that is not going to be interfering with the area below that is close enough to the wetlands. Cutting down trees for them to be kind of just meandering through there. This is not, it says horseback riding, but this is more just for them to be living. They're just some rescue horses.
Okay, so it's kind of an agricultural project. Is that correct, Brian?
Correct, yes.
Well, that's what makes me question this, because I don't see the validity of it really, but I guess you can call it whatever you want.
Well, Stuart, this is Mark Parker. The way I see it, yeah, you can cut the trees, but it's not really going to change the contour lines. And I'm looking at the contour lines, and it looks like the water will flow kind of to the right from 236, feet down to 220 feet to, yeah. Anyway, down toward to the right, down toward the wetlands. So I don't think, from what I understand of contour lines and water running off, I don't think it's going to run toward the driveway. It's going to run to the right, down toward the existing wetlands.
Well, you can't be sure with horse trails and stuff, what's gonna happen.
Yeah, well,
What do you mean horse trip? They're going to be in a fenced-in area up beyond there. They're not going to be out anywhere near the driveway or anything like that. I didn't really understand your question about how it relates to the driveway. You were asking if
Hmm.
this is going to run off towards the driveway area.
So there is a fenced in area where they're gonna be.
Yeah, it will be fenced in up there so that they can stay up in one area. They're not going to be not going to be making trails anywhere else. They're just going to be living up there.
Oh, see, that's not clear.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I tried to reiterate that the title of horseback riding wasn't something that I put on this. It's just a home for them, basically.
So it actually would class under agriculture for that, for the horses. You don't have to have a farm per se to have
Okay.
agricultural activity. I don't really have a problem, given the explanation by Daniel. However, I think any approval for this driveway should be conditioned that in the future, if there's a change in the use that requires upgrading of the driveway, then a new application would be required. So for example, if at some time in the future you want to build a house up there and you find that the driveway that you created for the horses is not adequate for home, for housing, then you come back with whatever the changes are that you have that are in the upland review area or in the wetlands, come back to get that approved. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But we'll know by then if there is a problem with the drainage at the corner, if you get to that point.
Sure.
Daniel's point about tailings, being draining, if they are as he describes them, then I think over time what'll happen is it'll get clogged as you drive trailers up and down the driveway and drag material in. But that wouldn't be necessarily acceptable for a home, but it would be certainly fine for the agricultural activity that you have, not a problem. So I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I have no objection to making a motion to approve it with that condition. If nobody objects, I'll make that motion and I'll read it out.
I just
I'm
have
fine
questions
with-
about, I just have questions regarding how this presentation relates to the uses, and it's a bit of a concern, I think, that, going forward, like Daniel said in his email, it's not in our jurisdiction.
What do you
But-
mean it's not in our jurisdiction?
It is my understanding the owner has already obtained an encroachment permit for work within the state right of way.
That's to
That's-
gain access for the highway, right?
Right, is that true? Has that been received?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Has the owner already obtained an encroachment permit for work
have-
within the state right of way?
I sent in a copy of the previous permit from the owner that I just purchased the land from. She was approved for it through, I think she got it in 2022. It was good for 3 to 4 years. I believe she did cancel that when she bought the property. I just wanted to put this in here so you saw that the state is already willing and ready to approve, but there's a time limit on it. So I didn't want to go ahead and get my approval if you guys weren't going to approve today.
That's correct. The previous owner hired Killingley Engineering Associates in 2022 to obtain an encroachment permit from the DOT for the first 20 or 30 feet of the driveway.
So, Stu, that wouldn't have changed whether he's using it for agriculture or using it for a home. He still has to get that permit from the state regardless.
Correct.
It's like a driveway permit on a town road kind of thing. They own the road, they have the right to require some kind of approval from them just to gain access to their property.
Correct. But it's not an easily accessible driveway.
No.
From the road, it's, the sight lines are not good and you're going right up from a level state road to a 8% driveway with a horse trailer. So it was just a, listen, that's not in our jurisdiction, but just
Right.
using sense, it raises a little bit of a concern.
I didn't send in the approved design that was used to get the original permit here, but it's actually a 5% grade for the first 50 feet, then changing over to an 8% grade for the remaining 150 feet, I believe.
Is that what shows on Dan's drawing?
On what?
Dan's.
Oh yeah, it might have.
It should be. I copied the previous plan exactly for the first 50 or 100 feet. And I take your point.
So you can see the contours are very close together there.
You're absolutely correct, Stuart. Unfortunately, the subdivision plans didn't show much detail when this lot was approved. And frankly, I also had some concerns or some questions, but at this point, it is an approved subdivision and there's no other way to access this property.
Just Bill Rowitsky, the other note of that is that initial slope there is going to be paved according to your plan.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the hatched area will be paved.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve application 09-24-38, 0 Route 198, Bryan Sweet, for driveway access for land for horseback riding, with a condition that if in the future there is a change in the use that requires upgrading of the driveway, then a new application will be required.
And I would also add that, Marla, about the additional clear cutting.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay,
That's my motion.
Second,
We have a motion made by Marla Butts, seconded by Mark Parker to approve application 09-24-28-01-198 for Bryan Sweet driveway access to land for horseback riding with the condition that he comes back if further development is planned for the property or being planned for the property.
I
For
said if there's a
additional
change in use.
change in use. Okay, that's a better way to say it.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk to Stu about why I don't think the clear cutting is an issue. The only time the clear cutting becomes an issue is if he's in the upland review area. Clear cutting, that's the only jurisdiction that we have. And as long as he leaves one tree or several trees with a diameter 4 inches at breadth height, he can cut a number of trees in the upland review area and not require any approvals from us. Then the fact that he's using it as horses, that comes into potential agriculture. It just gets too confusing that I would not put a condition on regarding the cutting of the trees. That'll be something that if there is an issue where he clear cuts right up to the wetlands edge, and that's determined at a later time, that would be an enforcement action. I think he's aware of the commission's jurisdiction at this time.
I guess I'm not so convinced. Sorry about that, but I will probably
We'll see it again if it's a house.
yeah.
If it's gonna have to change in use and he needs to upgrade the road because he finds that the road does not stay stable because of the conditions, whatever, he'll have to come in to upgrade it to get a building permit. So that's why I
mean,
put the condition on it.
Ultimately, it sounds like it's going to be a house. So
I don't know.
why
I do not
Well-
have any plans for that. I already own a home in Southbridge, Mass right now. This was a expensive way, but it's still cheaper than paying for horses to be kept
Mhm.
at somebody else's property.
Mhm.
And we're running out of time to find a new place, so this is what we did.
So I'm
But it
assuming
is-
you're gonna
it
build a
is-
shelter
I-
that'll be in the outside of the upland review area.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do something very basic, a
Yeah.
very like a run-in type deal.
Mhm.
Ready for the further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
And you have no abstentions and the motion passes. And we have 3-1. So we'll be good to go on this.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Daniel.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, second pending application, application 10-24-48, Route 169, map 5167, block 12, lot 06B, Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC, new single-family home.
This is another one that we've had on our calendar a couple times. We have Morris Lewis on the call with us. We do have some new documentation, correspondence from, bear with me one moment. Dennis Duga regarding wetlands delineation, and also a second regarding a first floor layout and business with the health department. I don't know if members have had a chance to read this document, but it addresses some of the questions that the commission posed early on. If the applicants would like to speak to this at all, we have Morris Lewis. We don't have Dennis Duga that I see.
Dan, what site plan are we supposed to be looking at?
An 1127 revision from Archer.
The one you have, for the record, my name's Dave Smith. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor. I work with Paul Archer and Bruce Woodis, and we put this plan together. The one you have before you on the screen is been reworked to address a few comments to show grading on the driveway, set of erosion control measures, driveway anti-tracking pad, and you should have gotten that on. I found out about this Friday afternoon. A email was sent to Dan that should have included this and the drainage computations that you folks had requested at your last meeting. If you don't have that and haven't had a chance to review it, I think we're going to be having to cover an awful lot of ground. But
This is my most recent site plan I've received. I haven't received any drainage calculations.
you didn't get a narrative several pages long as
I
a
got-
PDF on Friday?
Not that I'm aware of, but bear with me and I'll try to track that down. I just received correspondence from Dennis Duga.
I know Dennis, and I know that he has an earlier active role with this. As I say, the original plan was prepared as a septic system design, just to start formulating what work was going to be necessary to test and retest this property. In the doing of that, wetlands were discovered that were not part of the original 1988 approved subdivision plan. The house is in essentially the same location. It's just that now with this discovery of new information about the wetlands, it's on the wrong side from the road, so hence a driveway crossing is being required. So
I have a question, Stuart Peasley here. Just on the section AA. I guess that's on. Can't see what sheet that's on, but it's on the last sheet. Where does that delineate? Where is that section shown on the plan?
you look on sheet 1, it's the
Yeah.
cross section that goes from the house through the fields toward the south. It's just a kind of a staple shape.
Okay, it's not. It doesn't have the A and the A on.
Correct. I don't, that's a typo, but it's a cross section through the leaching system to demonstrate that we have met or will meet health department requirements before they issue a building permit.
Here's Marla Butts speaking. Here's the problem we have. We're at our deadline. We don't have an extension granted of any time for this processing of this application. And that has to be in writing and it has to come from the applicant. Now, you can grant us up to 65 days extension, but he has to do it. It can't be done by you, unfortunately. And I don't think without the hydraulic calculations, I don't think that we could grant an approval for this.
Well, I don't know. I have no explanation for that. They were sent to the office on Friday.
Okay.
Do you know who you sent it to? Because I did not get those.
Caitlin, Paul's daughter, sent them. I addressed the letter to you, but is there a secretarial staff or the planner perhaps?
If it didn't go to Dan Malo at woodstockct.gov, I don't know.
I have a hard copy of that PDF, but I do not have an email copy of it, so I can't tell you. Sorry.
Would it be sufficient if he sent that email to me now and I access my email
No.
to display it on the screen?
No, that's too late. We don't have enough time to look at it. If he wants to send us an email granting us a 65-day extension, that would be fine. That'll give us time to look at it next month.
But that, as you say, is not I can't do that.
You can't do that. He has to do that. The applicant has to do that. So.
Is Mr. Lewis amongst our viewing public here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm on the phone. I'm on the Zoom call as well. So what you're referring to, did I get a copy of that? I'm not even sure if I even received what you're referring to. I don't think I have that in my possession.
I understood you were in the office today, dropping off some house plans. You didn't. Okay.
No, I emailed the revisions of the
Okay.
plan.
You sent them in there.
Yeah.
So,
But-
Mr. Lewis, can you grant the commission, are you willing to grant the commission a 65-day extension of time to process this application? And are you willing to to follow that up in writing via email to Dan before the end of this meeting to grant
Yes,
that? It's just a
I can do
simple statement that you grant a 65 days extension of time, and we'll pick this up next month.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you willing to do that? Will you give us a 65-day extension of time?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, please follow that up in writing to Dan via an email
Okay.
before the end of this meeting.
Okay. I can work on that right now. So what specifically that needs to get forwarded to Dan Malo? Because whatever it is, I need to.
I'll take care of that, find
Mhm.
out where it went wrong, but the letter from you granting the extension continues this review process. Absent that, it has to be denied.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the alternative.
Okay. Well, let me do what I need to do. I'll send an email to Dan Malo requesting the 65-day extension, and then
And I will check tomorrow as to see how it did or didn't get misdirected.
okay.
Mr.
So
Lewis,
I would-
while you're still on the call, sorry to interrupt. You actually are granting that 65-day extension to the commission, not requesting it.
Okay. And what does that mean?
Basically the same thing, but you're giving us the time rather than us.
Asking for the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to pull the loose ends together here.
The way the law reads is you have to grant it. We can ask for it, but you have to grant it. And you have to do it in
Okay.
writing.
Okay. I'm going to work on that email right now. It'd be a short narrative.
Yep,
And
that's all it needs, just a one liner.
okay, perfect. So I'll get that right now to him.
So I'll move to table this application 10-24-48 to later in the meeting. Before the next citizens' comments to verify that Dan has received that email extension. So I move to table that until just before citizens' comments.
Just one quick question. Then we can come back to that. I'll be happy to second. If we have any other questions on the drawing, should we raise them now or after?
No, you'll have time because you'll be getting 65 days. You'll have 2
Okay.
more months.
And the drawings that you're presently looking at are not the correct drawings. Somehow,
Okay.
the updated drawings that may answer questions that you have or address concerns that you have are not before you apparently.
Okay.
So
So I have a motion.
Second, I'll
Bill?
second the motion then as
Okay.
Marla presented.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley to table application 10-24-480 Route 169 rather. Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC, new single-family home. Table that to later in this meeting, and it will appear before number 9, citizens' comments. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, it's unanimous that we will table this till later in the meeting.
thank you for
Okay,
that.
thank you. Yep, thank you. Moving on to new applications. Application 12-24-52, 150 Route 169, Chris Cassaday for Woodstock Academy Timber Harvest. I'm sorry if I butchered your name.
No, that was actually pretty good, Bill. My name is Chris Cassaday. I'm a certified forester here in the state of Connecticut. Before you folks tonight, representing Matt LaPriest Logging and the Woodstock Academy to discuss this forest management activity that I hope you had a second to review. The last time this piece was treated was when Amherst College owned it about 40 years ago or so. And the forest has had some changes since then, that's for sure. There's a pretty good section of gypsy moth mortality, and along the wet system that comes down through the harvest area, a pretty good component of ash that is hanging on for dear life. So the objective of this kind of improvement thinning is to salvage the ash before its demise of the emerald ash borer and kind of thin out the rest and continue on in hopes of an uneven age forest. Not going to have to create any new roads or trails or crossings with this. It was actually a really nice job that was done that time ago from what I can tell, and the roads are in good shape. A lot of eyes on this piece. There's hiking trails through there, the cross-country team. And we've, over the past few months, done some big management activities around it. So this really does kind of make a big management effort up on Castle Rock Hill. As you can see, the access is not going to be through campus. We're not going to be doing any treatment in that pine stand behind the maintenance facility and that larger wetland system there. The understory is quite riddled with invasives, everything from devil's walking stick to barberry to everything else. So hopefully some of the proceeds of this harvest, possibly some other funding, will treat the invasives in that stand too, so to speak, that abuts the campus. And down the line, maybe thin that out as well. But so I guess, I didn't scroll over to see. Yeah, the map is up. I can field any questions you may have at this point.
I have a question, Stuart Peasley here. I was looking earlier My question is, I don't know what a blazed footpath is.
Well, that's their cross-country track, and Blaze
Oh.
is just a little paint mark, to indicate it. But I just, wanted that on there, so people knew where that footpath was.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was a new
So
logging term. I wasn't,
Well, no, blazing is an old one, yeah.
So I have a question
So
for
Bill,
Chris.
Yes.
When you're harvesting, will kids be allowed to go through the stand of woods? Will they be using the trails?
Well, we are certainly going to post the trails, and they're not going to be out there while we're logging. But
Okay.
the kids that are interested in this activity are going to have a walkthrough of the site, and we are
Okay.
going to try and get as much involvement to land use history and forest management, anything we possibly can open eyes up to, being that this is kind of a rare opportunity to have a school in.
Mhm. I would agree.
Kind of what I meant by a lot of eyes are going to be on this, so it's
Yeah.
a neat piece. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, Bill Verwinski, typically cross country is a fall sport. And for long distance running for track, which is in the winter, but it's also in the spring, they could be using that for long distance practice for track, but it's not, they probably wouldn't be holding any organized races on it in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, communication is the key to success, right? So that,
Yep.
people will know that we're going to be out there, and I don't anticipate an issue with that. But.
And all
It
the
creates-
spring track, all the spring track stuff is typically on the track, so,
Oh, 10-4,
But it-
good.
but it might
But
be used for workouts.
It also creates a good opportunity for some of their science classes to take a local field trip to look at how things work. And maybe, somebody from the Wetlands Commission can work something in with that to talk about, how wetlands operate and that kind of thing. Could be a very good educational opportunity for the
Well, if you
school.
think that's important, I'll be happy to keep you in the loop. Yeah, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Okay,
move
just
to-
a quick,
Okay,
well, wait a
sorry.
minute, one more question. Bill Rowinski, so from stand 2, you have a big parcel and several small parcels. And are you planning to go on the yellow dashes to bring your
ye-
logs across?
Yeah, the yellow dash we are going to use. The orange dash is the foot trail. And so
Yep.
anywhere that's shaded green on this, we're not going to be, no activity at this point.
Oh, okay, so you just stand 1?
Just stand 1 is going to, yes, correct.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, no problem then, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Marla,
I move to approve application 12-24-52. Excuse me, 150 Route 169 for Woodstock Academy's timber harvest.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Marla Butts to approve applications 12-24-52, 150 Route 169, Woodstock Academy Timber Harvest, and that would be use permitted as of right.
Correct.
Is there any further discussion? Forget who seconded that.
Stu.
Stuart, okay, second by Stuart Peasley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, and the motion is unanimous. Thank you, Chris.
All right,
We're all
thank
set to
you.
go.
Yep. Have a
Yep,
good
thank
night.
you.
Thanks again.
You too, thank you. Moving on. Application 12-24-53, 0 Route 198, K&M Villa State LLC, 5-lot subdivision.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'd be happy to represent this project briefly. Again, Daniel Blanchette, J&D Civil Engineers, here tonight on behalf of the applicants, Ken and Melissa Pelk. The property in question is located on the east side of Route 198, very close to the state line. It's about 600 feet south from Massachusetts. The property is roughly 21 acres in size, and we're proposing to cut that into 5 lots that would have one shared driveway for access. So if we look at this plan, you can see there are some wetlands shown in that blue area on the right-hand side, the south side, and also towards the east side of the property. Yes, thank you. Yep, also wetlands as well. Lot sizes will be between 1.4 and 9.5 acres. We are proposing to donate about 45% of the land as conservation. We're working with the Conservation Commission, again, to see if they have any questions or concerns. Hopefully at the meeting this month, we'll be able to speak with them in more detail. If we could maybe scroll down again, please, to the site plan. Perfect. Thank you. And so there's very little work proposed within the upland review area. We did our best to stay within outside 100 feet from wetlands. The only work that's proposed within the upland review area is the discharge from 2 footing drains or foundation drains, Lot 3 and Lot 4. Unfortunately, due to the way the elevations work, we'll have to intrude slightly into the upland review area. This is really, I believe this is kind of a jurisdictional ruling. Again, there's very little work proposed within the upland review area. This is a great project. We used a lot of low impact design techniques. We maximized sheet flow, maximized impervious area. The density is very minimal. If you look at the zoning regulations, I think we're allowed to potentially do up to 21 lots here, and we're proposing 5. So again, it's mostly impervious, it's mostly sheet flow, and I think it's a pretty good project. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Dan, please let the commission understand about the free split. Because there are 6 lots in this drawing. And
No, great
Yeah.
point. Great point. Thank you for mentioning that. So at the southwest corner of the site, we are doing a free split lot. Thank you, right there. Now that's already been approved. Everything's been submitted to the town. The house is under construction. And so truly there are 6 houses being built. However, before the commission, we're only seeking approval for the 5-lot subdivision.
so Dan, when I stopped by the office today, we looked up the wetlands agent approval for the lot that's currently under construction. Could you state what that permit number was if you have it for the record? That approval, I think it was a 22. I didn't
What's
keep
the
the note that I had.
I want to say 10/22/07, but that note didn't make it out of the office with me, unfortunately,
Okay.
today.
Yeah, late 2022, absolutely. Late 2022.
So Daniel, I don't really have a real problem with the application. The only comment that I have, since this is going to go on the land records, and you've got the wetlands flagged. Now, there is nothing in the legend about what identifies a wetlands flag. So if we look at the series, the C series of wetlands flags, which is the big wetland, I started looking at the little diamonds that you have, which apparently are the flags.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so when I'm going down, there's a couple of those that are missing when I actually counted them off. I don't know whether they just got missed or whether they just didn't get transposed onto the plan. But there's 2 that appear to be missing in that series. That you might want to fix before it goes, finalized with planning and zoning.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion, and we can certainly rectify that. I'm going to make a note right now.
The other question I had is how, because you're turning over the land for open space to the Conservation Commission, you only flagged one side of the wetland system on that open space lot. You didn't flag the other side. Were
Correct.
they flagged or just decided it was excessive work for that?
Exactly. We only had a soil scientist, Joe Thoreau, in early 2022 delineated the edge of the wetlands that's closest to any construction. And so the far side, the east side, is approximate. It was taken from GIS and other soils maps.
So that should have a note on the drawings regarding that it's
Absolutely.
not flagged by a soil scientist
Absolutely.
and how you came to that conclusion as to what it was.
Perfect.
So I didn't notice the drains, the 2-yard drain, the house drains when I was looking at it, because I thought this didn't need any kind of approval from us at all. But technically it does for the 2-yard drains.
Yeah, lots 3 and 4.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of, is the owner planning to develop these lots themselves, or are they planning to sell them off individually?
Yes, no, the owner's planning to build the houses himself.
So it always stay in his control,
Yes,
their
sir.
control.
Absolutely. Yep.
They wouldn't be looking for partial transfer of an approval. Meaning if
No,
they
not to the best of my knowledge. No.
Because that, since it's not work actually in wetlands or water courses, it's a wetland, technically would be a wetlands agent approval. And I would have no objection to Dan signing off on an approval with a condition that should any lot be transferred before the construction activity occurs, a new application must come in for that lot. Because we can't transfer part of a permit. Anybody else have any comment? We have to do something on this because planning and zoning is required by law to consider our input in their process. So
Which lot again? I'm sorry, just
3
I'm
and 4.
confused. Which lot is under construction at the moment?
Oh, it's the one by the street.
Bottom right corner.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
That's got an approval. So have you supplied the deed for the single split to for the town clerk's filing?
Yeah, all the maps and deeds have been recorded. I know the
Okay.
assessor issued a new lot number. They were going to call it 2A-1.
Okay. All right. Got it. How do the other commissioners feel about having Dan process this as a, I mean, we could approve it ourselves, but Dan could process it as a wetlands agent approval on the condition that should a lot be sold to a different entity, that there could be no partial transfer permit, that there would have to be a new approval applied for.
Bill Verwitsky, that's fine with me. I was looking something along those lines anyways for this evening. So either there's plenty there that we could approve ourselves, but it could be a wetlands agent approval.
if there were a partial transfer, how would that affect the upland review consideration?
You can't really issue a partial transfer. Either the applicant builds it or a new application comes in for the new work. I mean, for the new owner. That's what I'm suggesting, that any approval be granted to the current applicant on the condition that should the lot be sold before it's developed, that a new application must be submitted and approved.
Because they could change the design.
You can't do a partial transfer.
Even if they were to keep the same footprint and location and everything?
No, they should come in because it's a responsibility. How can you transfer a part of a permit? I have a problem with that. that will incentivize the developer to do the development himself. But what's the cost of a permit? $95?
Well,
$95.
who knows? I mean, it's good for 5 years.
But
And
when
I
you sell
think,
a lot,
I
a
think
lot of
that,
times the people who
I-
buy the lot might want to do something different.
correct, but I
And
think
so
that
you want
it
them to
could be
come
done,
in,
it could be done conditionally, saying that if in fact it is going to be transferred, then, you know, that's all that gets transferred as is. But should there be any want or need or desire to change it, then they've got to do a new one.
I don't recommend it. The cost is so small to come through with a new approval.
Question, Marla, would that be limited to lots 3 and 4?
Only, because they're the only ones that need approval. The rest have no regulated activities. The yard drain for lot 5, it ends before you get to the upland review area. So that's the only really minor, minuscule activity. The other questions that I would make for the Planning and Zoning Commission, which aren't wetlands related, would be how are you where's your snow shelf for the driveway? You know, you've got 3 driveways at the very end coming off. Where are you gonna plow the snow? I don't know. That's not the wetlands issue, though. That's for planning and zoning to figure that one out.
I'm always happy to hear feedback.
Details.
Absolutely. Any other suggestions? I'm all ears, please.
Well, you might have identified on your plan as to exactly where the snow would be plowed. I'm thinking of an application that happened in Thompson near Little Pond where they actually gave a piece to the town so the town could plow its road, which didn't have a cul-de-sac.
Bacola Road, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yes, same kind of idea.
Sure.
But right now, any easements would not, what if each of the property owners objects to the snow being plowed onto their property?
Is
She
that a
should probably
town
have
road?
something there that says, this is where it'll be. There's an easement for plowing to here. I don't know, but that's not a
shared
wetlands
driveway.
issue.
Sorry, Stuart.
So
It's a shared driveway,
shared
not a
driveway?
town road.
Okay.
Yep.
So then, is there a homeowners association or anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have to have different maintenance agreements drawn up for the driveway.
So that's something we need to look at ultimately in the subdivision regulations to see how they handle common drives and how they handle owners associations. There are legal constituents for owners associations. Thompson just went through a whole bunch with that in their subdivision regulations. So, but we don't need to worry about that because we don't have any cross culverts on this driveway. We don't have any wetlands associated. We don't have to any work in upland review areas for the driveways, the common driveways. So that's not an issue for us. So I'm gonna move that application 12-24-53 Route 198 by K&M Villa Estate LLC, 5-lot subdivision, be processed as a wetlands agent approval with the condition that such approval contain a condition, I said that wrong, the contain a condition that any lot that is to be developed by anyone other than the applicant, it shall come back to the Wetlands Commission for a new approval. That there shall be no partial transfers of permits.
You could just say if there's any change in ownership.
No, because if the whole subdivision gets sold to somebody else, you can transfer the whole thing. We're just talking about single lots. You want me to repeat that?
Yeah,
Bill?
I think it can be simpler.
Let's see, how am I gonna say that? I move to approve application 12-24-50, no. Start again. I move that application 12-24-53 Route 198 by K&M Villa State LLC for a 5-lot subdivision be processed as a wetlands agent approval with a condition that there shall be no partial transfer of permit for a single lot.
Good.
Do
Second
I
motion.
hear us? Okay. Motion by Marla Butts, second by Stuart Peasley to, I'm gonna have to have you read it again, Marla. because-
Process application 12-24-53, 0 Route 198. K&M Villa Estate LLC, 5-lot subdivision be processed as a wetlands agent approval with a condition that no individual lot may be, that no permit, no partial transfer of permit shall be granted for any individual lot.
Need to second that again?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Second
I
it.
would advise it. Okay. We have a revised motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley, to process application 12-24-53, 0 Route 198 K&M Villa Estate LLC, 5-lot subdivision as a wetlands agent approval, conditional upon the
With a condition
original. Yeah.
that no single lot may be transferred.
Okay.
Well, I think you're gonna
You
have to
fir-
write this up after.
I'll write it up.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you everybody very much, and thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. I'll see you
And-
shortly.
Yep, thank you. Moving on. Application -12-24-5465 Hyde Perrin Road, Don Gagnon for Laurel Ridge Inc. pond dredging.
Right. Dan, were you gonna lead this up with the application?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have a short presentation prepared.
I don't mind one bit. Thank you.
All right, terrific. So again, for the record, everyone, Daniel Blanchette, J&D Site Designs. I apologize. You have to listen to me a third time this evening. We're here before you tonight to discuss a project to restore a pond at the Solaire Recreation League. Before I go into too much detail, we're not expecting any approvals this evening. I'd like to give kind of a high-level presentation on what we're proposing. At the following meeting, we will have the dredging company, New England Aquatics, and our soil scientist, Margaret Washburn, on hand to answer any questions. Again, our intent is really to introduce everyone to the project, see if anyone has any major concerns or questions. Now, the project is located at the Solaire Recreation League in Woodstock off Hyde Perrin Road. The property contains a 3-acre pond, and we're seeking your approval to restore that pond by dredging. Again, over the years, different organic materials have dropped into the pond. They decay. They make a layer of muck at the bottom. And from our bathymetric survey, we estimate around 12 inches of organic muck at the bottom of the pond. And what we're proposing to do is essentially vacuum up that muck. The muck would be sent, again, by a pump into a dewatering bag on the shoreline at the beach area. If you're not familiar, a dewatering bag, it's made out of something similar to silt fence. It's a semi-permeable plastic membrane, and the wet material is pumped into this bag, and it's a large bag. It's 100 feet long and 40 feet wide. It's a big bag. And then over a number of days or even weeks, the water is able to flow out of that bag back into the pond. the dried organic material remains, and then that material is transported to another area of the site. And again, it's not leaving the property, it's going to be transported to another area on site. We've estimated that the total amount of muck to be removed by hydraulic dredging, approximately 4,800 cubic yards. Once the material dries, we estimate a 50% reduction. As the volume will decrease as the water bleeds out. And so the total amount of material that we have to remove, again, is half of that. The area where we're going to deposit this material, the applicants have an existing field. They call it the Field of Dreams. It's next to the shooting range. It's a big field. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose is. Don could probably elucidate that. It's a big field, and so we're going to deposit on average about 2 feet of material throughout that field. I have submitted quantity estimate calculations, and so the area of the field is more than adequate, again, to handle this material that we're taking out of the pond without any steep slopes. And then once final grades are established, that area would be seeded with kind of a native wildflower mix. Again, really just kind of for enjoyment of the campers there. In terms of erosion controls, we have a couple different things proposed. The applicant uses this pond for recreation. There's a number of people who've used that. And so, maintaining the water quality is very important to everyone involved. The first main thing is called a turbidity curtain. Now, along the outlet of the pond has an outlet where it flows under the road. It consists of a 4x4 box culvert. And we will have turbidity curtains installed just upstream of the outlet, which again, it's similar to a silt fence. There's a flotation device, a foam device that hangs on the top of the surface of the water. And then there's a semi-permeable membrane that goes down to the bottom of the lake that's weighted and it's anchored with chains. And so as the dredging occurs, any kind of material that's stirred up can't leave the pond. It's not going to go downstream into the river or the wetlands. The other big thing is underneath the dewatering bag. You can imagine a lot of water is coming out of the dewatering bag, especially initially. And so there will be a tarp, a 6 mil tarp that will be placed under the bag, and it's going to extend all the way into the water. Again, so as water is bleeding out of this bag, it's not going to erode the beach at all. That's pretty much all I have this evening. Again, I'll have a more detailed presentation prepared next month. The drainage expert can speak in more detail about what specifically he does, what's involved. But we'd love to hear any of your questions or concerns tonight.
Bill Rowinski, I just want to make a few comments. And one is that I asked about Norm Tebow's authorization to approve or certify that the dam is safe. He submitted a letter and put his state on it, his seal on it. So unless anybody has a further objection, I would say that would be sufficient with his seal to continue, because he also states that he's not really altering the dam, or there's nothing altering the dam.
Bill, I have a question
Yeah.
about where that dam actually is. So the plan, the sheet 2 on the plan that we have shows that there's a road, there's some kind of culvert, but down the aerial photography shows that there's a dam farther downstream. Is that correct? That the dam is actually located on the other side of that roadway? Or is the dam also considered to be part of that roadway? Where is the dam?
The dam is on the east side. It's about 4 feet wide. It's on the east side of the pond. And it flows in through a culvert pipe over to the other side. And the other side, if we open the dam, it'll flow into a smaller pond and over into a waterfall that feeds Lebanon Brook.
Would it
So
be
that
possible?
water,
I'm
that
sorry.
waterfall isn't, sorry, go
Could
ahead.
we share the screen? Could we pull up an image maybe so we can all look at something?
Dan, I'm looking at the site plan.
Hmm.
Can you pull up or screen share for the site plan? The next page. Okay.
Okay, there,
Okay, thank you. So Marla, you're referring to the area kind of at the bottom left-hand corner of the pond where it goes under the road. Is that correct?
Yeah. When it goes under the road, according to the aerial photography, after that 4x4 box culvert downstream is another. I thought that was the dam for the main pond, and that the box culvert was just a free flow through. That the actual dam is downstream. Where is the dam that DEP is referring to? Are they saying where that 4x4 box culvert is? Is the dam, or is it the structure located downstream from that?
it's a berm that's been there for forever, and there's a waterfall that flows through. He inspected the actual dam that they put in I think 1980.
Which are you referring to? The place where the box culvert is, or the waterfall?
The box culvert.
So dam safety's calling the box culvert the dam. The road, the
Yes.
embankment for the roadway is the dam.
Correct. The box culvert that's directly on the pond.
So that structure, the waterfall downstream, that doesn't have a tailwater into the pond? There's a drop between the 4-foot box culvert and that structure, the waterfall downstream?
There is if you open up the dam. I mean, that they built a dam in 1980, and the pond before just flowed through under the road and over the waterfall, and they built that dam in 1980. Just naturally fed into Lebanon Brook from that point.
Well, all of it goes to Lebanon Brook eventually anyways, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it does. According to, so I did a quick look. I have questions about the turbidity curtain. Turbidity curtains typically are they don't have a high porosity. And the contributing drainage area to that box culvert is over a square mile, which is a large volume of water. So my concern is the way the plan has come up is that I don't think it's going to work, because what it's going to do is the turbidity curtain is going to allow for, because it can't pass water fast enough, it's going to push the water, either blow out the turbidity curtain, or it's going to blow underneath the turbidity curtain and send the turbidity downstream. So the other question I had is I took a look at some videos online, YouTubes, of this piece of equipment and how it operates. And it's pretty slow in its movement. So for the next meeting, you need to have the contractor who wants to do the work, because you're talking about committing your beach area with this large dewatering bag. We called them dirt bags when I was working at DEP, and that will cover most of your beach area. And if it's a very slow moving operation, you're going to lose the beach for quite some time. You need to get an idea as to how long this operation is going to occur. And you may need to phase it so that you have a turbidity curtain across the area, not for the square mile drainage area, but for that portion of the pond that you're cleaning up, so that you isolate the construction area from the free flowing area, which is not what you're really doing in this proposal. So identify where the most critical portions of the pond cleaning are that you want to address first. Have maybe a phase 1 to see how it operates, see how long it takes. And the other question I have is, how are you going to get the sediment out of the dirt bag once it collects there? typically,
We have a front loader, a dump truck, and we're gonna move it to the Field of Dreams.
how are you gonna move the dirt bag? It's not gonna stay with that amount of weight?
When you mean when it's emptied, when all the weight, the sediments removed, the plan is, we need to rent a couple of dumpsters and we'll work with the front loader to put them in the dumpster to
How
get
are
rid
you
of them.
gonna get the sediment out of the dirt bag? What if the
With the-
dirt bag fills up with sediment that he's chewed up from the bottom and your dirt bag's full and you're not halfway through your project? You got it sitting there on your beach, which means you've got to cut it open and remove it.
Well, those are questions for Matt, who's the dredging guy, who can answer those better than I can. You know, he'll be prepared for the next meeting to answer any of that about phasing the project. You know, the turbidity curtains and you know, how long it takes for these bags to drain.
So I read Margaret Washburn's letter, and she did not recommend pumping it to a different location. She recommended that it drain back into the pond because she
Right.
said that it drained to Kettle Brook. Or is it the name of the
Lebanon
brook?
Brook.
What? Excuse me?
Lebanon.
Lebanon
Brook.
Brook. And that, but this all drains to Lebanon Brook anyway, so it's not going to make, it's whatever nutrients come out of this are going to go to Lebanon Brook anyways. So the question that I have is, if you come up with a problem that you can't move that dirt bag, it gets filled, and you have to cut it open, which means you're going to have to replace it. My question is there another location? She did not recommend pumping it to another location for dewatering. You've got some logistics here that I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I mean, she finally said settle. We looked at multiple areas on camp. I mean, ideally, what we would like to do is to pump directly to an area we wanted to deposit it. I thought that would be the case, but it appears like this entire campsite, what isn't ledge is wetland, basically. So we could pump it several areas, but it'd be into wetland. There was another area, one of the abutters, he has a lot of property. Steinberg next to us agreed, said you could pump it there where it's flat, but she felt that was going to drain, and the amount of water draining into it would be a problem, draining across the road and back into Lebanon Brook, where this goes right back into the pond. It's not going to go directly into Lebanon Brook until it goes over the dam, where we remove boards from the dam to lower the level of the pond. Whereas if we did it directly, all of that water would be going directly into the pond, and she felt it would be too much water at once. Whereas, you know, kind of repeating myself, but it would draining here would drain right back in the pond where it came from, and it wouldn't go down back to Lebanon Brook unless, as I said, we removed the board from the dam.
So are you expecting that your dirt bag, which is 43 by 150, is big enough to hold all the sediment that you're gonna dredge out of the pond?
He can actually stack two of them, he said. Thus, he can stack the larger one than one, I guess the same, you know, rectangular dimensions, but not as deep. You can put one on top of it. So yes, he can fit it all in there. And he also explained that as you're pumping it, it's draining. And you know, you can fit more in as water drains out, and then if need be, you could put another bag on top on that area.
Yeah, so typically when these are full of water, they tend to clog with the fines, and so you have to hit the top of the bag to drop the sediment out of that's adhering to the sides and the top of the bag, which then usually releases some kind of turbidity, but not a ton, not by comparison. So that's his intention. So you can fit, I think you said, what was it, 33,000, 4,500 cubic yards?
The total is 45 to 4,800 cubic yards is what he figured. When it's dried, about 50% reduction. So, you know, about 22 to 2,500 cubic yards of dry sediment.
So he's expecting that these dirt bags will hold that much.
Two of them will.
One stacked on top of the other.
Right.
And how long is he anticipating this to take?
He thinks, well, the dredging is going to take about 6 weeks. The dewatering, he estimates, will be 2 months, maybe 3 months to completely dewater.
So so that means you're gonna have to have a period of time where you've got one dirt bag that's dewatering, he's gonna put another one on top of it. So how is it gonna dewater if he's got another bag sitting on top of it?
He'll have to answer that. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to speculate on
Okay.
how that's going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
these are all great questions and comments. We'll be sure to communicate these to our dredging consultant, and certainly have answers prepared before the next meeting.
Okay. I'm really concerned about the turbidity curtain being across the face of the dam, the box culvert. That I really think is not a great idea. I think having a turbidity curtain at a distance, trying to isolate your dredging area from the free-flowing water that's remaining in the pond, so that you don't have pressure on the turbidity curtain draining a 1 square mile drainage area. So it may need phasing so that you clean one part first, then you move the turbidity curtain and clean another part. I mean, that may be the way that it would have to do it, so that you minimize the potential danger of having a turbidity curtain in front of the dam outlet.
Well, thank you.
Bill Rowinski, my other comment is that you have a letter there from, I believe from DEP that says that the metals and other potential contaminants are negligible right there. That's and then the next page is signed off. That's the letter there.
Yeah, so the scary stuff was all within the safe limits, fortunately.
The previous page just has some standards and the results
Yeah.
of the and I didn't find anything that was even close to being an issue by the standard that DEP was using. Does anybody else have any comments at this point?
No. Do you need a motion?
If we're going to accept this application for the next meeting, unless
Well, we have
somebody
no,
objects to it.
we have to accept it because it's been submitted. So I'll move to accept application 12-24-54 for 65 ID Karen Road by Don Gagnon for Laurel Ridge Inc. for pond dredging for consideration at next month's meeting.
Second,
Motion made by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley to accept application 12-24-54 65 Ide Perrin Road, Don Gagnon for Laurel Ridge Inc. pond dredging. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Did I hear everyone?
yeah, I said aye.
Mark, are you with us?
Mark?
Did we lose?
All right, so I'll just put it as 3.
Okay. So we don't, are there any opposed or any abstain? So the motion will pass with 3 ayes.
All right. Thank you for your
And
time,
Mark
everyone.
non-responding.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll see you next month.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move along, we do have correspondence from Morris Lewis granting 65 days to the Wetlands Commission to process his application on Route 169. And that should be visible on your screen.
We'll make a motion when we get to just before citizens' comments to table it to next month.
Okay.
Okay, application, new application 12-24-55, 290 Exit Road, Philip Riley for Sinkowski family, removal of invasives.
So we discussed this a little bit at our last meeting. We didn't have an application yet, but Philip had sent some pictures in requesting to remove some invasives along Roseland Lake. So let's revisiting those pictures. This was on the eastern shore. And he did provide an email at the time with some of his game plan. We also, I believe, have Philip on the phone. All right. Hi, Philip.
Hey, how are you? Good evening.
If I know the commission had a couple questions last time about sequence and what type of invasives. But if you have any further detail about what you have that we don't have on our screen, go ahead and give us a rundown.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking with the homeowner, he was trying to open up the view a little bit and make it so they had a nicer shoreline, and also those are invasive species. I'm not really sure how to go about finding out what kind of plant it is. Dan, I think you were able to identify it via that email. But yeah, he just wanted me to go in there and excavate it out, and then in that third photo, do something similar up to that pine tree that is right there. So on that left side of that photo, I'm just above that the boat, just clear all that out.
I believe we were discussing Phragmites. Was
Yes. And then my intentions of getting rid of it are, I have an area where I can burn things I was going to bring back to my property and burn them. But if you guys have other suggestions, I am open ears. You guys are the professionals with this, so if there's a better way to go about it, would love to hear it.
You know what, Dan, have you been out to the site, Dan?
not yet.
So I'm looking at the picture with the boat in it. And I'm looking at it more carefully. That might not be Phragmites.
Doesn't look like it,
It
does it?
doesn't really look like Phragmites heads, but I thought maybe because it was so old that it was decrepit, but it almost looks like wild rice. But I've never seen wild rice out this way. I've seen it along the wetlands near Connecticut River, but not up this far.
Is
I
it
think you
invasive?
need to identify what that species, what that plant actually is. You know, who might be able to help you help the property owner is the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. If they contact them to see if they could come out and take a look as to what that actually is. I'm not convinced it's Phragmites anymore when I'm looking at it. And they don't seem to have, they have a lot of herbaceous vegetation that they could mow down without doing any in-water removal work. I mean, we don't regulate the removal of vegetation if they just wanted to cut it off. But if they wanted to dig it up, move earth, that's what requires the approval. But just the cutting of the vegetation does not. what was your plan? Were you just gonna cut the vegetation off, or were you gonna dig it up?
I was gonna scratch off the top layer just to make sure that it doesn't grow back, and um, let the homeowner decide what he wanted to do after that. Either, let grass grow, or he's an older Vietnam veteran, so I think going in there and trying to do it himself is not something he's particularly interested in or capable of.
Yep.
So yeah.
So he doesn't really know what those plants are. He's just calling them invasives because they're where he doesn't want them to be.
That's what he had told me, and I'm not really a plant specialist, so I took his word for it. Maybe I should have done research my first time going about something like this. So, I do apologize.
That's okay.
But
Dan, you know
I
what
know that
Phragmites looks like.
most of the most of the growth on the west side around the park and all around the south, that's all Phragmites. So
Yeah, so you would think that this would be Phragmites, but
right,
with,
yeah.
without actually looking at the root system, I wouldn't, and looking at, because it doesn't have the fronds like it. When was this picture taken? Was this very recent?
This would have been the beginning of December.
Okay. So if it was Phragmites, it still should have had the fruiting heads. Should have still had the fronds still. Hadn't gone through the winter yet. I'm surprised. Huh. Well, it could be frag.
Yeah,
But it doesn't
I'm
really
just
look.
saying, knowing what's around the whole rest of the other side of the lake,
Yeah.
it makes sense that it probably is.
So, do you have like a sketch or a drawing as to the location of where you're going to be doing this earth moving work?
No, I didn't know I needed that.
Okay. So, I think what we need, you can use the GIS program. You see what's on the screen? I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Yeah.
So, Dan is calling up the GIS program,
Mhm.
and that actually is an aerial photograph that shows the generic property lines. They're not precise, but it shows what it looks like from the air. So from
Mhm.
that, you can kind of figure out, okay, you can see that big oak that's in your photograph. You can see
Yep.
that there, and you can see a pine that's there. So what you would do is you would take a print of this and then mark that up to say, this is where I'm going to take the material from. This is how much cubic yardage I expect to take. And that way we know how far extensive your work is actually going to be.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
until you give us some kind of plan, even if it's a sketch, because this could be construed under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home, but it also might not be, depending on the extent of the work.
Yeah. My intention wasn't to make it very extensive, just to get the root balls out that are what we initially thought were the Phragmites, to get as much of that as we possibly could while staying on shore, and then to do something similar on that second photo where you said that you could just go down there and cut it essentially. But that photo right there,
Yeah.
staying on shore, just getting as much as I possibly could, getting the root ball. So trying to take as little and disturb as little as possible. And
So
doing,
it's really, you're only talking what, an area of 10 by 20?
yeah, probably. Yeah. And
If we can identify that plant, make sure that it's not like wild rice. If we can verify that it's Phragmites, and by all means, yeah, get rid of it. And just identifying the extent of what your work would be, like 20 feet by 10,
okay.
into the water. It looks like it may go out 8 feet into the water body.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. What do you need for confirmation? Because do you need a letter from someone saying this is exactly what it is? I just so I have as much fuel as I can use to do this properly.
Dan, can you advise him? You're
They,
muted.
as you suggested earlier, Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
Okay.
They, I mean, they might be able to look at your photograph, and their expertise might be able to identify that pretty quick. Um, Maybe a little closer picture for them. They might be able to, that would help them along. Um, I don't believe they're in the business of charging people for their information.
Mhm.
But we can connect tomorrow by email or phone, and I can get you directed to them, Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
Okay.
You can just go ECCD online. Pops right up.
The other issue is that if we're gonna be taking wet stuff off the bottom of the pond, you're gonna have to dewater it somewhere before you take it down the road.
Okay. So I have to let it sit and dry for a while before it can be
Yeah.
moved.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the suggestions for how long should it dewater for?
It's probably hard to tell. I don't have a lot of experience with that. When you're drawing up a site plan, also try to come up with an area where you deposit that material to do the dewatering. Um,
All right. Is there anything specific that I need to know for a dewatering site? Like, does it need to have a natural flow back into the pond? Does it need to be away from certain, like, I'm new to this, so I'm not sure what you guys are looking for with a dewatering site.
Marla, you're muted.
Marla, you're muted.
When were you planning on doing this?
I wasn't planning on doing it until I got approval.
Right, but if the ground is frozen,
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't
then
do it.
you're not worrying about dewatering because you're gonna be trucking it right off if it's frozen. If it's not frozen, then you're gonna want to have it dry out a little bit, unless you have a watertight truck.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
don't have probably a watertight truck.
I'm sure my dump truck would probably leak out the back. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think in order for us to grant an approval, I think one, we got to verify that that's Phragmites. And two, need to have some kind of dimensions of the area, the aerial extent, you know, how many feet long, how many how many feet out you want to go into the water body to take that out. It doesn't look like you got frag on the other photograph. So I'm not sure whether or not there's any invasives that are in the water column, you know, by the oak tree.
yeah, and you know what, that I'm gonna be on shore. Like I'm really not messing too much with anything in the water on that other side. It's just the plants that are in the water that you can visually
Right.
see. That's really the main concern. But I wasn't sure if there was some sort of law, like if you're working, within a certain area of wetlands or a lake or something like that, that you needed approval. So I didn't want
Yeah,
to start.
you do need an approval if you're going into the water, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But say I'm working on the shoreline. If I'm working, within 5, 10, 15 feet, do you need approval to work that close?
Technically, it goes back 125 feet.
125 feet. Okay.
Yeah, but listen, we don't regulate people mowing their lawn. We don't regulate them cutting their bushes. If you're just clearing out the vegetation, weed whacking it and removing it, that's one thing. But it's when you start moving the earth, you know, when you start scraping stuff around,
Okay.
creating disturbed ground, that's when we get involved.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
So
So you got to figure
Marla,
out exactly what the extent of the work is that's going to be earth moving or disturbing, land disturbing.
Yeah, I can write that up and submit it back in.
So Marla, could you make some recommendations as to a dewatering site? What it typically would be looking for?
Well, for something as small as this, I mean, all that you really need is some kind of vegetative barrier, because you're not taking that much out, and it's not like the dredging that we saw.
Mhm.
This is something very, if he's like got a lawn area or vegetated area upslope, it'll dewater really fast. It's gonna be a very short-term problem because he'll be in and out within probably a day if he's got a machine.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not gonna be, with the size of the water body that you have there, I don't think, I think he can probably stockpile it back from the water's edge, like 20 feet, and that should be fine. And then as soon as it dries out so that it's not sogging wet, drippy wet, then you can move it. And that might dry out really fast. It might not too. So my
Okay.
recommendation for something, depending on how large of an area he's going to do, he wouldn't need a like silt fence or hay bales. If he can get it away from the water body so it can dewater and drain slowly back towards the lake, then he probably wouldn't have a problem. He wouldn't need a formal structure like a
Well,
dewatering basin.
Marla, Stewart here, it would be the root system that would be moist, that would be wanting to drain.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
that, so would the root system contain the seeds or whatever will transpose from them?
The roots.
Well, the
The
roots
roots.
the roots will
Yeah,
distribute.
they're really aggressive.
Okay.
You only need one little nodule and can go down and start another colony.
So
Yeah.
that drying the root system draining 20 feet away is
Nah, that's probably not going to be a problem.
okay.
It's if the stuff starts to float out into the lake, floating across to another location,
That's
it gets a
when
root hold, but it's already there. It's already in the lake.
yeah.
Well, this
What would you,
this particular site, I'm looking at it with very fond memories. I used to come and swim and fish. There was a family that my parents were very close to. And so I'd say from the age of roughly 8 to 15 or 16, I would come here and there used to be a dock right there going out into the water, and it was all pickerel weed and lily pads. This Phragmites or wild rice or whatever was never there 55 years ago. Plus, as a resident of Woodstock, and I've been watching Roseland Lake all the years, you know, I've watched it go from a what is it, mesotrophic, kind of a mid-trophic lake to being eutrophic because of all the farmland runoff upstream, and I've seen, you know, this lake and the Phragmites that came in all around it. So, you know, it's just kind of, you know, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, wow, there's really been some sedimentation going on, and now all of these invasive species have come in. It's wow. So
so
you know,
you don't remember this 50 years ago?
this was pretty much all open. That little cove there, you're kind of looking south. That little cove there was pretty much was open, but yet it was loaded with lily pads. You know, because their stems rise up, you know, 2, 3, 4 feet. So and yeah, and where that Phragmites is, it was more of the shorter lily pads and pickerel weed, you know, that you find along the shore. So yeah, that wasn't there 55 years ago. That's happened over time, probably over the last 20 or 30 years when the frag started coming into a lot of freshwater systems.
Do you think that's Frag?
I do.
Okay. Well, then you know, I would still try to check with the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. If they can't get something back to you by our next meeting, just come in with a drawing as to what the extent of the removal work is and where you're gonna stockpile the material, so that we know it's not gonna, you know, you'll get to dewater it before you take it off site.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Does anybody
You know,
else have any further comments? Okay, go ahead,
Another thing
Marla.
that Phragmites doesn't like, it doesn't like being cut off. If you keep cutting it, it gets weaker. It still likes to grow, but this is close enough. He should probably consider weed whacking it periodically during the growing season if it starts to come back.
Okay. I'll inform him of that.
Yeah,
But so my course of action, ECCD.com, figure out if that's fragmenters or not, site sketch and a dewatering zone.
Yep.
And get back to you guys.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, they might, you get the ECCD, if they come out, just have them take a look at the other side too.
Okay.
Make sure there's not any, invasives that we have to worry about on that side too.
Okay. Understood.
It's just a clarification. It's conservect.org.
Oh, conserve.
no, that's the state conservation, that's the state organization, but it's
If you,
EC, Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
I just plugged in ECCD and that's what came up.
Oh, that's what came up?
Yeah.
They must have a link then to all the other districts.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right,
Okay.
And it says Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
gotcha.
Okay. All right. Well, do you guys need anything else from me?
Well,
Nope.
thanks for your
Think what-
diligence.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you all
Yeah.
very much for your time and Happy New Year. And I'll look forward to speaking with you again.
Nice to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Have a good night.
Yep, good night. All right, administrative business. Preliminary discussion of, where am I? Zero Rocky Hill Road.
Hi, so we got Tim Osborne here with us. Last year, he had transferred to him a permit that Shane Pollock had gotten through our commission. Since purchasing the property, Tim and I've been out there too. The approval that was proposed, it looks to cut an acre and a half of trees down to place this house further away from in the rear of the property. Tim has another vision, I think, that makes a lot of sense, that he's here to discuss with you how to potentially modify this approved permit, or should he seek his own new permit. He's been working with Norm Tebow of Killingly Engineering Associates, but I think Tim can probably explain his vision best, and any other questions, I walked the site with him for a while, and we pointed out a lot of things and had a long discussion. I might be able to fill in some gaps after Tim.
Perfect. Hello, all. Thank you for having me here tonight. So the purpose for me being here is really to propose a few changes to the existing site plan for our property on Rocky Hill Road. Although I understand that a new plan and drawings will need to be created in addition to, a new permit modification application. I'm basically requesting acceptance of the concept of these changes, as well as the knowledge of what you'll need from me to hopefully get the new plan approved. I've been on the property for about 10 months now, and over the last several months, I've been taking down and clearing trees within the defined clearing limits. As per the existing plan, I have installed silt fence in preparation for an excavator to come in and remove stumps, rocks, and boulders, of which there's a lot of them. It's a pretty challenging property. And also to install a culvert pipe so we can get onto the property with our truck and other equipment. Parking on the side of that road is not optimal. It's like a racetrack down there, and it's downright scary when there's a little bit of snow on the ground. I did schedule the excavator to come in last Friday, as a matter of fact, but got to thinking about it, and I was going to propose this in this meeting, and it just didn't feel right to do any work until I pass things by, you people again. So that's been postponed. After walking the property numerous times with my wife, we've discovered that the plan, which is the vision of the previous owner, is not representative of our vision of what the property should be. in order to implement the existing plan, we would have to take down so many trees, beautiful, huge trees, and dig up so many boulders and rocks that the natural beauty of the property would be lost. And that's really the reason why we bought the property to begin with. It's just a beautiful property to be on and to walk, even though there's a significant number of rocks and boulders. We don't even know what we would do with all the boulders. We would be constructing our house in the middle of a quarry, basically, if we followed the existing plan. We've learned that it might be impossible to move some of the boulders from the excavator people and dig through the rock, possibly requiring blasting, which we would really rather avoid. We also may have to go with a concrete pad instead of a full foundation at the current plan location. The existing plan places the garage side of the house directly in line with a large water channel that comes down from the hill. Although we haven't seen any water flow, the erosion is clear. It is a gigantic path for water to flow down. As a matter of fact, it looks like the house would be right between that large eroded channel and the wetlands, in one of the wetlands areas. As far as the back, that's on the side of the house. The backyard is nothing but a boulder field. You can't even ride an ATV through it. It's so strewn with large rocks. We didn't realize these things until we started clearing. After having, Killing the Engineering Associates come in and take the house and mark the driveway and clearing limits. I mean, that's just a few of the reasons why we'd like to, move the house or move the house location. But the majority of the reason is we would basically be, I think Dan will agree, we walked the property, we would be destroying the property just to put the house 600 feet back in the woods versus the 200 feet back that we're proposing. So the new proposed plan is to build the house 150 to 200 feet back from the road, which is, 400 feet short. Actually, mostly, the house would be mostly within the clearing limits of the existing plan, outside of the wetlands areas, but within the upland review area. As I said, it would eliminate 400 feet of driveway along with the associated excavating and necessary removal of, 40 plus gigantic oak trees and hundreds of smaller trees. The new plan would also put the house downhill of one of the wetland areas instead of uphill of it, and almost level with the other. It would completely eliminate one of the biggest concerns of the property. I'm not sure if you can see the plan, but the water running down this last 400 feet of driveway was a real concern with the original plan, where it was going to flow, and there's swales in place and all kinds of things to control the massive amounts of water that was flowing down that driveway. Our plan would eliminate all of that, as well as basically the destruction of a large percentage of the property.
And
I'd be open to any questions, or again, I'd love to know exactly what you need to help me to put everything in place to get this new plan approved.
And I've been circling the area that Tim and I spoke of in concept. It falls within the upland review area. The original plan did propose work generally outside of the upland review area. This came to the commission because of the driveway through the upland review area. Tim would rather shorten this driveway distance from placing the home right about here. Some of this depends on what the health district comes back with for an acceptable location for the well and septic. He's been working with Norman Tebow of Killingly Engineering Associates to work on those processes. But as he did note, this hill, the proposed house as Pollock's original approval, is located right between this hill and this wetlands. Tim does not disturb much of anything in the clearing area proposed near the house. He has done clearing for the driveway within the clearing limits, but he'd rather see this area where they propose the house and the yard to be maintained as natural forest, or as natural as it is right now, without the disturbance that proposed in the original Pollock plan.
Question, have you already done test pits for the new septic location?
We have not. As a matter of fact, there were so many trees that were taken down that I'm at the tail end of cleaning everything up. At which point, Norman and I will start working together. I guess I have to put in an application with the health department, and then I think we will. Norman will go in, or Norman will have his people go in and determine where the test pits need to be. And at that point, I'm thinking that's the time to get the excavator in. Even the excavator can't even get onto the property currently because of rocks down the driveway. But it just didn't make sense to possibly tear up the road by having this gigantic excavator come in twice. So once it's cleared to the point where Norman and those people can do their evaluation, that's when I think you'll need the test pit as part of the application process, correct?
Yeah, the concern will be, because you've got wetlands that look like they're perched, that you may have soil conditions that won't be consistent with a septic system. And that's going to be your most critical thing, I think, is citing a septic system, because both of those wetland systems, the wetland system that's to the north of where you want your proposed house,
yeah,
that's perched. All the land drains to the southeast from that wetland system. So that means that if the water table's high there, what is it doing in the slope to the southeast of it where you want to put your house? And that's also where you'd be putting your septic system. So you may have, even though it might not be classed as wetlands, it might have a high water table, might have some kind of hard pan underneath it, that's causing that wetlands to be perched. But that the hard pan may drop lower. Your real problem is going to be citing a septic system.
Yeah.
To do that.
What can you explain what perk? Did you say perk? I'm not sure what that means.
A perk, it tells them how fast the water can flow through the soil.
I'm sorry, I was doing perk. You were saying perk. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm saying that there could be a perched water table. If you have a hard pan, which can be in variable places in the soil column, which will stop surface water from infiltrating down into the lower layers. And it causes the water table to be elevated higher than normally what you would expect.
Gotcha.
That's a perched water table. So I'm thinking that wetlands, that you've got you actually got 3 wetland systems on this lot, but the one that's in the central portion of the lot looks like that's a perched system to me. So that would tend to make it suspect as to whether or not you're going to be able to get a septic system in to the down slope from that. Because that's what you're proposing, because that would be down slope from that wetland system.
Right.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking maybe the septic system could go back between them, but I'm not an expert there. I don't know if this is worth anything to say this, but in the last 10 months, I've been there after every single major rain and snow and melt off and all that stuff. I've never seen water anywhere on the property at all. Besides where the markings are for the wetlands area. I mean, I know that wetlands are determined in Woodchuck by soil type, but there's never even a puddle in there.
Well, there's no standing water, but what systems like that are probably is that they have a high water table during certain times of the year, and then the water table drops during the low flow times of the year. And so you'll get what's called mottling, where there's some oxidation and some reduction of the minerals in the soil, close enough to the surface so that it's classified as a wetland soil. And it's likely that if there's trees in that area, that their root systems are perched a little bit. You know, they're elevated up off the ground surface. You won't see standing water, but it tells you that the water table's close to the surface at that location when you
Okay.
see that. And a lot of times the soil scientists will use that as an indicator as to where the wetlands actually are.
Gotcha. All right. So that's probably the first and foremost thing that I should do is have those test pits determined and dug, correct?
Yep.
All
And they
right.
don't take big machines to do those, I don't think.
Norman advised a pretty big excavator in there, and it's a good sized excavator that needs to go in even to remove the size of the rocks that are in the path, even of the original existing plant. So luckily, the majority of work that the excavator has to do initially, it applies to both plans.
Okay.
But Norman has said that until those test pits are determined and this topography has been performed, he doesn't want any excavator even close to where the septic might be. So that's why the excavator was postponed. I need to get in there. My wife and I are going to determine where we think we'd like the house, and then we'll have Norman and his people adjust that according to their expertise. And then we'll have the excavator come in and excavate the access to the property as well as dig the test pit. And then I'll be working obviously with the health department and Norman to make that happen. And then that will become part of the application that I will submit to you, correct?
Yeah, if you can get a septic system approved, identified as being a possible location, because that's going to determine where your house can be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know why you would have to have a big excavator come in to do the test pits. Maybe to get the access road in that you already have an approval for the lower part, but they shouldn't need a huge machine to do the test pits.
Yeah, what we were kind of thinking was that since that machine is already going to be there, he's not busy through, for the next 3 months. It's his off season. If it's going to be there anyway, we might as well have him dig it.
Yeah, the problem is that they'll dig much larger than what you need for a test pit.
Oh,
That's the question. And then it becomes you're doing work in the upland review area that you don't have an approval for. Just digging a test pit is not usually a problem. They dig it, they do the perk test, and then they fill it back in.
right. Okay.
It depends on how much disturbance that big machine would cause.
Well, I'm thinking maybe I'll just have him in there and dig out the initial, 100 feet of the driveway. Which really we need to get I need to get my truck and trailer off the road. And maybe I'll have him do that, and then he can leave, and I can have that smaller excavator come in and dig the pit. Yeah, it depends on what's between the road and where the test pit area is. If it requires a smaller machine, that's exactly what I'll do. It depends on where Norman. I don't know. It's probably not Norman himself that determines where the test pits are. Right? It's his people that come in, or his associates.
Well, usually they do several, and because one of them might not perk good, so they'll look to do a couple, and they all might not perk good. You don't know, and that's the reason why you do that first before you spend a lot more money on plans.
Okay. All right. So I wouldn't be breaking any rules if I had the excavator come in now and create the access, and then finish clearing the lot, and then do whatever is necessary to get those test pits dug. Can I assume that I can assume that I can do that? I think all of that's still going to be within the clearing limits that are already defined.
So another item we discussed in the field is that there is a big boulder right on this proposed driveway. And Mr. Osborne was wondering if he could offset this driveway. What was it? About 8 feet?
About 8 to 10 feet. Yeah, it's hard to see. Yeah, if you look on a plan where that culvert pipe is and the riprap on each end, right in front of the right side, what is that, the eastern side of that culvert pipe, if you draw a straight line across, there's a gigantic rock there. And this excavator it's a 52,000 pound machine. He's saying that he's not sure if he can move it. He won't know until he tries. The problem with that is if he tries and it's a beautiful rock. I would actually love to have the street number inscribed on it. But if he goes and tries to dig it out and scratches the daylights out of it, now it is a complete eyesore. So what I'd rather do is just this driveway 10 feet to the left, which is still nowhere near that wetlands that are up the street from it. And it might change like the elevation of the culvert by a couple of inches. But it would allow us to leave that rock there and not even have to try to move it. We dug down quite a bit, and it's one of those pyramid rocks that just keeps getting bigger and wider the deeper you go. So.
Yeah, so that could come in as a plan revision if you're just going to move that. That looks like you're just in the upland review area, so that could potentially be a plan revision as opposed to a whole new permit.
Okay. And I would work with Dan for that, right?
You would work with your engineer to show where the new driveway entrance would be, because it's
Okay.
still in the upland review area.
Yes.
So
All
he'd have to redraw the driveway.
Okay.
And then you'd come in for a modification of the permit. Now,
All right.
subsequently, if you find you can get your septic system in, you'd have to come in for a whole new permit or whole new approval.
Okay.
But just to move the driveway to the west is what you're saying, to the left?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be you'd need to have your engineer draw up a plan to show that relocation and submit that as a modification of the existing approval.
Okay. Very good. Okay. I understand. Any trees that are outside of the upland review area, do I ever need to get an approval for removing those? All right. The part of the plan for the property is to, slowly harvest, trees off just to, for heating purposes. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't stepping on any toes by doing that. We're not even 100% sure that's part of the plan yet, but all right. Anything else?
I think we're all set for now.
All right. You got me a little scared about the septic, but I kind of knew that to begin with, to tell you the truth.
Once you figure out where you can get the septic, then that'll help you make some decisions on where you're going to put the house exactly and stuff like that.
Okay, very good. I'll be in touch with Norman immediately. Now, within the next couple of days.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate all your information, and I'll probably hopefully I can be part of next month's meeting with all the right things that you need. We'd like to get going on this house eventually.
Yep.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Yep. Good night.
Goodbye now.
Yep. Bye. Mr. Dan, want to continue?
Moving along. I think where we were at last month with the 132 Indian Spring Road is where we're at a standstill. I wasn't able to make any traction on re-releasing any letters down any of the new angles that we were discussing.
Which new angles were we discussing?
A door hanger.
Oh, okay.
I still think that could be the solution. I just wasn't able to dive into it. With the last month has been kind of chaotic with town hall closures and just condensed workloads and that kind of other things that wound up on our agenda took a lot of the wetlands time. But if anybody
These,
has,
well, the only thing I could say is this property is subject to two different tax districts. One is the town and one is the Witch's Woods. So they must have some way to mail things to her.
okay,
Of course, depending how return address may look, she might refuse it or something. But Witch's Woods gotta have some way to mail her tax bill. And the town's gotta have some way to mail a tax bill.
I think she's
Let-
refusing to receive it, kind of. But I think, I mean, we have our tax bills probably going to her, the address that we have in our vision record, or the assessor's record.
Yeah.
But I'll try to cross check. I'll speak with the assessor tomorrow to see if we have any alternates, and see who I can reach out to for Witch's Woods to try to get their version.
Yeah,
of
I
mailing
wouldn't send
address.
it,
Yeah.
Dan, I wouldn't send it with a green card. I would just send it with a white slip tracking. And then just, because that will tell you when it's delivered, but you don't need a signature for that. So then you just print off the tracking information from the USPS website. And then it'll tell you when she got it. So don't send it with a green card, just send it with a white slip.
Okay.
It's cheaper too.
Yeah, we've spent about $20, I think, close to so far on this one. So be able to get back onto that one. It's been quiet in terms of the any issues with the neighborhood regarding that, but I'm gonna be following up there to see if there's been any use of those blocks that were on a pallet that we saw in the photographs. Just to pull them in for permitting if they are building any structures. Moving along to other correspondence, we do have 2 cell phone.
And sorry,
tower-
back on,
Yep.
on that one. I thought there was a fence dispute, so maybe there's activity with the fence permit?
There's no such thing as a fence permit. So if there was a matter of a boundary line dispute regarding the fence, it would be a civil matter. Woodstock doesn't issue permits for fences unless they're over 6 feet tall, and a building permit's required, because it turns into.
So you can
wall.
put up a fence anytime you want without a permit?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind
Okay.
of weird.
Yeah.
Some towns that's all they do. You
Yeah,
know,
I thought you had to have a
drive-
permit for that.
As long as it's lower than 6 feet.
You can put up a fence. Oh,
Yep. We do advise that you leave a little, you don't build it directly on your property line. You build it a little bit inward so you can maintain it without trespassing, and, talk to your neighbors and tell them what you're doing, maybe.
Well-
but nobody has to go through all these processes with Woodstock.
okay. But on this case, I thought that I had heard that somewhere that there was a fence being constructed, and that was part of the dispute.
Yeah, it would be if it was a matter of encroachment, it'd be a civil matter.
Okay.
We don't receive applications or do permitting for fences. Other towns, you'd be supplying, site plan, like you're putting up a shed or something. But not in Woodstock. It's kind of not in rural towns too, a lot from what I see. But such as Windsor Locks, for example, when the lots are so small,
Yeah.
I think that's when it comes into play. And when you get to see some weird weird fence proposals, and have to mitigate a lot of the complaints that come with that. But that's just a civil matter in Woodstock, unless it's over 6 feet.
Okay,
So there's 2 tower proposals that the Planning and Zoning Commission and our commission has received. The links on our meeting page lead to their cover letter for each and a technical report. They're pretty large. You can't send them by email unless we give you like a Dropbox link. The best way to grab them is right off the town website through the link I'm hovering over now. The Planning and Zoning Commission used their statutory authority to schedule a public information meeting. And that public information meeting date has been determined with the applicants. Both the applicant in both cases is the Towers LLC. Each application is using a different legal firm to represent. They're working with 2 different legal firms on these applications, but everybody has come together for February 20th. It's the Thursday. It's the Planning and Zoning meeting that falls on the 2nd Thursday of the month. Representatives for the Towers LLC will be there to present. We're already assembling our comments, and I know Bill supplied some. I know I've talked a little bit with Stu, I think, already, but we're looking for your input on this. And right now, it's just a news item on the Planning and Zoning page, but there are going to be more notifications forthcoming that are required by the applicant to notice it, such as like a public hearing or town meeting. And it'll get more prominence on our town website, front page, and possibly the social media page after the official notices are publicized.
So Dan, I've had a chance to take a look at both of these reports. The one for down by Chase Lumber was, I thought was very well done. It evaluated a number of different sites and gave reasons why they weren't chosen or were chosen. The only thing that I have on that one is that I don't think they've identified the wetlands flags. But that's something else. But then the one for 169, the only question I had on that was why they did, this was done by Robinson and Cole, and it's not very well described as to why they picked and chose certain sites and decided not to go with certain sites. One of the sites that I thought that they should have looked at that they didn't look at was the town-owned property at 49 Payne District Road. That's where the transfer station is and where the solar farm is and the old landfill. And they're well away from any homes. So you don't need to worry about the, what is it, the EMFs or whatever they call the energies
So,
that come off the cell towers.
uh,
And I have mentioned it to Selectman Paquette. And he didn't, he said that as far as he knows, the town was never approached to use that site to provide cell tower access for the Roseland Park area. Apparently there's problems with cell reception in that area, and that's why they were looking at these 2 towers. So I don't know if they're going to look into that. I don't think there's any wetlands issues. And plus he says something about they need a 3-phase line for the cell towers for electrical supply. And he says the transfer station already has it because they needed it for the solar field. So it might make a really good site for them.
Sure.
They own quite a bit of land up there. And they're not going to be able to use that land for much of anything else because of the landfill.
So with the siting council, they kind of take control over this whole permitting process. But one option the municipality has is the municipality can suggest alternate locations to what they propose. And we spoke, Chandler and I spoke about, the town can weigh in as a municipality and propose town-owned sites. And I don't know how far that has gone after our conversation, but I think um, it's a potential opportunity, and he's sensed that much. I think we mentioned a middle school has a tower that could possibly be upgraded. I didn't know about the transfer station though, but I'm glad that you mentioned that and had a discussion with him on that.
Yeah, the school might have problems because these are, I think it has something to do with the electronic emissions from the towers, and you don't want them necessarily next to high congregations like schools.
I
So
think
I
it's
don't
that's
know that the school,
radiation, some kind of radiation, yeah.
yeah,
that was it. That's in their report. There's a certain distance that they have to be away from schools.
Okay. Yeah. Chandler Paquette is aware that there is a municipal card that can be thrown here to suggest an alternative or propose an alternative. Um, if we can get an alternative location that splits the difference and only wind up with one, new, large, prominent thing in our view, that would be ideal for my aesthetic. But the siting council does have a lot of power in this process that I think we can offer input and kind of make it look maybe how we want it to, and weigh in our areas of jurisdiction. Um, I think I'm hoping that we get a lot of comments and give a lot of feedback on this process and get what Woodstock wants rather than just have a design and somebody pointing at a map and saying you're getting it here. I'm hoping for active public participation and participation on all the land use commissions to provide comment.
Well, the other thing is that I believe the Chase site and that general area, there were a lot of Native American artifacts that were found at that site. So I don't know if that exact tower location is part of that.
There's also
And that,
a natural diversity database hatched area in proximity to that. I don't know if the Chase property is in that crosshatch, but it's very close. Species of concern are in that area. I don't think the Christmas barn location had any of that issue, but I think Marla and we talked about trail crossings back there that were wetlands crossings when there was a dirt bike racing going on back there. Oh, you're on mute, Marla.
recall about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a proposal to put a motocross for a one weekender kind of thing, and one of the questions was where the wetlands were. There were some wetlands up there, and the drawing that was submitted with the plan did not have any delineations of wetlands at all, nor was there a statement from a soil scientist that there weren't any wetlands up there. So that was one question I had about the 169 site.
So, if things come to mind, send them my way. We'll compile them and make them part of the discussion, or forward them in their written form to whoever whoever's the repository for these comments. You know, as these thoughts develop, just send them in, and we'll direct them to where they need to be.
I missed the first part of your sentence there. It was cut off. So could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
As you form these, you know, thoughts, if thoughts come to mind, send them in, and I can direct them to where they need to go.
Okay.
In their, you know, in their written form, and make them, you know, discussion points that get raised at the public information meeting that on the February 20th.
Is this for POCD or for?
No, this
for
is the cell towers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we changed subject. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of business on tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
If members want to move on to, I've got last month's financials and the we've got a budget request for fiscal year 25-26 from Board of Finance, which I can bring up next here. So they'd like to see this by January 20th. Our budget is pretty straightforward. We don't have a lot of lines that some others might have. Some of our expenses come out of the land use office budget. And I think the most accurate spending is this report that I had up previously. If you follow the cursor in the middle of the screen, these are our line items. Effectively, there's 3 of them: mileage, notice, and dues and conferences. And we've spent a portion of each of these. One thing, yep.
So the mileage, as you can see, the 8576 I put in for that for Kakiwick, that's just for me and Mila to go just to that one conference at a rate of 67 cents a mile. So it doesn't take much to blow that $100.
No. So the IRS has raised that that number of what you can get paid. I think it's now 60 cents. I think last year it was at a reduced rate.
I think Karen said 67 cents.
Okay. I know it's gone up. The mileage I accumulate for my inspections generally will come out of the land use office. Because I'm looking at planning and zoning things while I'm also looking at wetlands things. I mean, it'd be cumbersome to itemize, you know, a trip for 10 different things by segment for each.
Yep.
But yeah, that having only $100 in that line and blowing most of that on one conference, one driver, that line where it's at $100 might not, you know, be reasonable at this point. It could stand for an increase. I know.
A part of the problem is we haven't been using it. So
Yeah. And our dues and conferences our dues are roughly the same, but conference fees have gone up significantly. Unfortunately I don't have that. I haven't been able to prepare all that as much as I hope to show you what we've spent.
Yeah, and I haven't put in my reimbursement for the conference fee.
I believe the $65 was the fee for one admittance.
Right, and I haven't put mine in yet.
And I mean, mine came out of the office budget. But if I always encourage training. If we send two members to something, $130, there's only $20 left over. That's only, one. There's multiple conferences throughout the year, multiple trainings that are offered. We have one that I'm going to be sharing with you, the annual legal land use all-day seminar is $60. And a book comes with it, but when it's at $150, it kind of limits the flexibility of what types of trainings you can attend and get reimbursed for. And I think everybody should get reimbursed for their outside expenses for this.
So what do you want to do?
Double them, at least.
All right, so double the conference dues, double the mileage, because Dan, you only got $28 left in the land use mileage.
Yeah.
You're almost out of money. You're gonna have to take it from the wetlands because you don't have
Well,
much money left in land use.
I've been told that legal fees line hasn't really been tapped that much this year in the land use office, and there's money that can be shifted, but they want us to, stay on those
We're
budget
doing,
lines.
yeah, we're doing budgeting. So, and since you're
Yeah.
not using the mileage for wetlands, you're using it out of the land use, you should be thinking about having that mileage still upped
We'll put that
and
at
have you charged
200.
against that mileage.
So increasing mileage to 200.
Yep,
Maintain notices at 650
yep.
and 300 for dues and conferences.
Yep. The other thing is I don't think everybody noticed that Dan still does not have Adobe Acrobat. So I've asked him to find out where that money comes from because it's not in our budget. To get a license, it's a subscription, an annual subscription. Now that you have to do, they don't give it on a CD anymore. So he really has to have that in order to put those documents up for the public to view. Because when I was downloading the files for tonight's meeting, I had to go into my Adobe Acrobat and change some of because the pages weren't set up right. He needs to have Adobe Acrobat to do that posting on this town's website. So
Absolutely. I've been given access to one that's shared by Crystal Adams and the Selectman's office, but it's hard for me to articulate. It's just not working. I'm logged into it. I don't get access to all the features to be able to rotate documents, consolidate documents. To put together that attachments page, there's a lot of files that had to be compressed. A lot of things need to be rotated. A lot of things come in piecemeal that need to be merged into, rather than 26 separate individual pages that as they come in, I merge them into one PDF document. Our file plans, we only get 100 megabytes on that attachment page, and a file plan, one sheet uncompressed might be 23 to 35 megabytes, and that would eat up a chunk of that space that we could use to keep those documents up. I like keeping those documents up because we can quickly access them at any point in the future after we get them up there.
Dan, once you find out where that money comes from, if it doesn't come, if they can't tell you where you can get that, then we should be putting it into our budget under contractual services.
Okay. I was gonna say what is closest in because we don't have a
Contractual
software
services. Because that's a subscription.
Okay. And that yearly cost of the Adobe program that we need, we looked at and found to be I think $235, I think Marla and I discussed asking for 250 to cover that in case that price creeps. But right now, without Adobe, I'm relying on the free online shrink your PDF, merge your PDF, and you only get one use every 24 or 12 hours on these. So I'm utilizing like a dozen of these all over the internet to try to, when we have so much information and applicants, because you can only use them a little bit. But with Adobe, there's no limitation on how many times you need to rotate a page. So yes, this is a huge need for the office, and I'm happy to ask for $250 in the contractual service line if that's what the commission wants to go with that.
Sounds good to me.
Do it.
You
Good
don't
luck
get
with
what you
it.
don't ask for.
Good luck with it.
They're griping. I mean, we have a Dymo printer for our label making, and we use the label maker to print mailing labels to send permits. And this Dymo is dying, and they're griping about an $80 new Dymo machine. You know, it's because it's considered a supply for them, and I'm hoping. And I don't have a supply line. We have a shared supply. But I think it is appropriate to make this request.
Well, I think it's appropriate, but I think also you manage your expectations carefully. They're looking to cut, not to.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we've had our busiest year in terms of permit processing, and we've only hit 50% of our notice budget. I don't know if you want to massage. You could possibly lower the notices. I don't know what next year will bring. I mean, we are trending up, but there's cycles to this too. I mean, next year could just as easily be a lighter year. I'm bad at forecasting. I've got the numbers, leading up to now, but I have no idea what next year will bring. If anything, it seems like it's getting busier. But only 50% of our noticing line. I mean, if they were quibbling about our increases in other lines, that potentially, I think there might be room to negotiate with the notice line. But I think we should submit the numbers that we come up with, and if we have to wrestle over some of them, then we've have a better starting point in the negotiation.
Well, they're just going to be looking at how the justification is, what the justification is for the increase, and I think if you can make a substantive, case,
Yeah,
it should be fine. But
part of the request is to explain, say what we do and why we need it.
Yeah.
And I will be, given an extra paragraph about the need for Adobe software.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just because it's fun and I want it, but it's a practical tool that would create a lot of efficiency in the operation.
Well, that's a huge part of what our task is, and if we're not working efficiently, then it takes more time for all of us. So we've got to, I think the argument has to be made that we've got to really bring things up to date technologically so that we can streamline the process.
Otherwise, you're paying for labor.
Well, they're
Yeah.
not paying, but we're putting it in. We're putting our time in, and that, you know,
You're not getting your money's worth.
we're not getting them.
No, I mean, because while a file is spinning its wheel to compress on a free software, I mean, that's moments where I can't. I'm stuck waiting on the computer.
Well,
There's a lot
and
of-
when I try to review some of these documents, it really is frustrating. And we don't get a chance to look at them. I have to wait till the meeting till I really understand what's going on. So when these documents are presented to us prior to the meeting, they should be, there shouldn't be any kerfluffle about it. We should be able to look at them and understand what's going on. And I think that you have to make that case to Karen or Crystal or whoever.
Especially considering that we're a Zoom only commission currently, and
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
how all the documentation gets to members electronically.
They've been saving a lot of money by not printing all the stuff that we've been used to
There
getting
we go.
printed. We used to get all this stuff was printed and mailed.
Yeah, and if there's a narrative portion to this ask, another part of the narrative could be that we're one of the commissions that's a volunteer only, and so we're really, saving the town by, using a lot of volunteer time, and that it is also one of the commissions that's really struggling to get volunteers.
Yeah.
And if they want to keep their volunteers, then it would be good for them to help us, give us the tools that would ease the time and burden and frustration of those who are sticking on the commission, so that they can continue to do business. I'm gonna have a talk with Chan and just remind him why I agreed to be on for another term, because I'm trying to help the town out. But if they're gonna make it more and more frustrating for those of us that are trying to be good citizens and volunteer, I'm gonna give them a piece of my mind. Jeez.
If you want to keep staff too, that's
Right.
gotta
Jeepers.
make it worthwhile.
Do we need
Okay.
a motion? I think
For budget?
Yeah, I think a motion is always good.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we are going to increase our request for financial budgeting to increase 100%
Okay, to the
for the
numbers
year,
that we did
for the next year, next fiscal year.
at the levels we discussed, 200 towards mileage, 650 towards notices, 300 towards conference and dues, and 250 to contractual services.
300 for software.
So we quoted 230. The price is 235 right now.
Okay.
We were thinking 250 for any marginal creep on that. That 250 work on that contractual services line for everybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll propose those numbers. Bill, I'll write up a rationale for these increases and send it to you by email tomorrow.
Okay.
And I mean, I did submit budgets for the other commissions. Do you want it to come with your signature on it, or I mean, I could just as easily take this across the hall with our minutes of our meeting discussing these.
You
You
could
have a
just take
motion
it.
on the floor that's not finished.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Marla.
So Stu, you said your motion was to increase the
The-
request for financial budgeting by 100% on all items.
Correct.
And add the Adobe.
Adding soft, yeah,
And add how much for software?
235
250?
250.
230, yeah,
250.
250, correct.
So the notices doesn't really need an increase, but mileage and conference and dues, those were the items, lines that were deficient for our needs.
But one question,
Yeah.
we're looking at the inland wetlands, not the land use, or are we looking at the land use?
We're just
The-
looking
I
at
mean,
wetlands.
Just
Okay.
wetlands. What I mean, the
So-
land use can inform your thoughts a little bit, but a lot of I think we have the real needs of mileage and conference and dues for the commission. Um, my role
Okay.
as staff, I can draw from the land use for some things that members would be utilizing the wetlands budget for. The land use budget, there's going to be some requests in that that I'm going to be proposing when I submit my stuff for the office. And one of it's going to be mileage. You know, I'm also looking at we have our planning expenses, I believe, come out of there. Our contractual services with Tyke, NECOG. I'm gonna.
So there's no second on the motion.
Yep.
So you might want to withdraw your motion and let's start again.
All right, I'll withdraw the motion
That's-
until we,
Okay. So
Right.
I'll try.
okay,
I'll make a motion to put in a financial budgeting request, doubling the mileage, doubling the dues and conferences of the existing budget, keeping the wetlands notices the same, and adding $250 for Adobe software subscription
Under contractual services,
for under contractual services.
right?
I would only question the doubling. It's, I would be more specific.
Well, okay, then $200 for mileage, $650 for public notices, $300 for dues and conferences, and $250 for Adobe software under contractual services.
That's good. I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on.
One item, speaking to what Mark just brought up about membership, I composed a letter for the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee chairpersons to about reaching into their membership for people to serve on local boards. I haven't had any reply yet, but I'm hope it's just one drop in the pond that maybe could lead to a member. And I'm going to be looking at every possible way to market these positions that we have open right now. I believe it's one full member and 2 alternates. Even just one member additional would give us a little flexibility and let Mark skip a meeting or two. but
I'll bring it up at our zoning board of appeals, but we had, as you know, we've had an increase in the membership there. I'll ask them, see if anybody else wants to add to their.
Or if they know anybody that's interested. I think we're
Yeah.
full up on the ZBA now, but
Yeah.
if somebody knew somebody who was interested in serving on a board, it doesn't require technical expertise. We can get you up to speed on the business that we discuss, and there's a lot of opportunity
Right.
for training to, we can teach somebody.
Adds a lot of cachet to their CV.
Sure.
One question on the land use law for municipal land use on March 22nd.
Yep.
So those are two separate.
Things happening on the same day.
Okay.
So tough.
So
tough
I mean,
choice.
they're coinciding. You couldn't go to both.
So the municipal land use law is an all-day webinar. I don't know if I think Bill participated in this a couple years ago, where it was just an all-day Zoom meeting. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I did. We used to do those in person though. So is this
Yeah.
in person? Is this one in person?
This is a webinar, so
Okay.
virtual. It was brutal. I
Yeah.
don't think they took a break. I think.
Yeah.
They didn't take a break, really?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
But at the same,
Is that like 6 hours or 4 hours?
it's like 6.5, 7 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I'm getting tired. It's 10
Yeah.
o'clock. Can we
Oh,
move
yeah.
on?
Yep, let's move on.
All right. In the attachment section, there's a pesticide notice that we received today. I'll be taking 2 personal days this week, Wednesday, Thursday. We're up to 55 total permit applications this year, and we had 2 permit modifications. I issued 2 Asian approvals in early December. One for an agricultural hay barn, and the other for an extra garage bay. These were activities in the Upland Review area. They appeared in the December 13th notice or edition of the Woodstock Villager, and their appeals period is passed. I didn't have them uploaded today, but I can share with anybody who wants to see them. In fact, I will add them post facto to the attachments page of tonight's meeting. It's been busy. Also keep in mind we have the meeting calendar for 2025 at the bottom of the attachments page, and I know of other training opportunities that I wasn't able to wrangle together for this meeting, but I will share them by email. But happy to take any questions now or tomorrow, or by phone, email, whatever comes up.
Okay. I'll send out an email tomorrow about something that I'm looking for information for. We don't
Okay.
need to talk about it now.
So we had also on this agenda, I don't know if you want to talk at all to it, Plan of Conservation and Development, and then also Morris Lewis's granting of an extension to the commission of 65 days for his application on Route 169.
I think we should table the Plan of Conservation Development because there's a lot too much to get into there tonight.
Sure.
Agreed.
So let's discuss Mr. Lewis's approval. So what do we need to do at this point on that?
Marla Butt speaking. I'll move to table application 10-24-48 Route 169 Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC for a new single-family home to next meeting, given we have received a 65-day extension.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley to table application 10-24-48 Route 169 Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC to table it to the next meeting, as we have received permission to table that from the applicant. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Mark, did you say aye?
I said aye.
Okay, I didn't catch it. All right, so the motion, vote is unanimous, so the motion passes. I don't, there are any citizens that want to comment? I don't see anybody on the Zoom.
I
So
move
would
to
entertain
adjourn.
a motion.
Second,
A motion by Marla Butt, seconded by, that was Mark.
yep.
Mark Parker to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it's unanimous at 10:04 PM. So we can stop the recording. And hopefully we got all the stuff we need. And thank you very much, everyone, for